When music gets hard, come see Professor Lee Euph.
Hey guys, I'm Professor Euph, and today's video is going to be about teaching the bass clef brass players how to read treble clef. Whether you want to, or maybe you're asked to for like a jazz band or something, I have a couple quick and easy ways to read treble clef by using what you already know of bass clef. This is not teaching you treble clef, just so you know. This is just how to use your bass clef knowledge and figure out where the notes are on the treble clef staff and to try to work your way from there. So, to get into it, for example, for the bass clef, we're going to find F, since that is the bass clef starting note. So F is there. Then I found where F is placed on the treble clef side, which is here. This part you just kind of have to memorize. So once you get the starting note down, then everything else works the same as bass clef, because all the fingerings and the partials are all the same. So, for another example, if you go up one more, you know this is G in bass clef. You go up one more here, this is G, which, even though it's technically not the treble clef name of the note there, that does not matter. But essentially the relationship between, each of the notes is going from bass clef to treble clef. It's either down 2 lines for F in this example, or up 2 lines. If the note's in a space like the G, then you go down 2 spaces, or you go up 2 spaces. It just depends from what clef you're going to with what. So a little bit of memorizing to do, obviously, but once you get it down, it makes playing treble clef notes a lot easier because you're already using the knowledge you know of bass clef. You just have to memorize where it kind of goes on the staff. So for example, we're going to pick a note on the treble clef side. Let's say it sits here on this line, and we want to figure out what that would be in bass clef. Since it's on a line and we're going from treble clef to bass clef, we go up. So we're going to go up 2 spots, and this is where it'd sit on the bass clef side. So now we know that that note in bass clef is D. That's as simple as it is. It's all about memorizing where the F sits, and then you kind of work your way from there. All the fingerings are going to be the same. Just because they're placed differently doesn't mean anything else changes. So, the only other thing that I could say that changes would be the difference between the key signatures. That's going to be a little bit of a difference. But it's not as confusing as you may think. So here, let's write out, hopefully you guys know the acronym BEAD, greatest common factor, because that spells out the order of flats and order of sharps depending on which way you go. So I do this dash here because that's if you have no flats or sharps, just so you know. Some people do that, some people don't. So needless to say, the flats start on this side, and you go through each flat, and the sharps start on this side. The good thing is, no matter if you're playing bass clef or treble clef, this stays the same. If you see one flat, whether it's treble clef or whether it's bass clef, it's going to be B flat, no matter what. So essentially, the key to the key signatures is whether you add or subtract 2 flats or sharps. For the flats, you would add 2. For the sharps, you're going to subtract 2. That's assuming you're trying to figure out what the treble clef key signature is. So let's say your treble clef key signature is just 1 flat, so it would be here. So you know 1 flat is just B flat. So in order to figure out what that key signature would be in bass clef, you just add 2. So you start at B, add 2 more, that would make 3 flats. So you do your B, E, and A. It's as simple as that. Let's say for another one, in treble clef you have just 1 sharp. It sits right up here. Well, to figure out what it'd be if it's already sharp, you subtract 2. So it's F sharp, because sharps start here, and you're going to subtract 2. You don't go this way, because that would be adding, so you go back around and you start over again. So this would be 1, where you either have nothing, and you go 1 more to make 2, and that would be B. So all bass clef players would have is 1 flat. Totally put that in the wrong spot. Anyway, you get it. One more example here. You have two sharps, let's say, in treble clef. What would it be in bass clef? Well, you start, what's two sharps here would be F and C. You subtract two sharps, so minus the C, minus the F, and where does that land you? In no man's land, where you would have then nothing in your key signature. It's as simple as that. So it's about when you get a piece of music in treble clef, start by figuring out what the new key signature would be, and then what I like to do is I like to write it off to the side. So this has nothing in the key signature, which means you start by adding 2. You go from nothing, you add 2, which means it'd be 2 flats in bass clef, which is what I have here. So then I just say either 2 flat, or maybe I write out 2 flats before I even start playing any of the notes, just so I can remember that technically my key signature is 2 flats if I keep thinking bass clef notes, of course. So, and then just figure out where your F is from there. And then start trying to work and figure out your notes. In the beginning, you'll still probably end up writing in key signatures and then the fingerings. Feel free to still use fingering charts, of course, but it will make this easier to learn to play treble clef without learning all the nuances of treble clef itself, and without spending so much time focusing on, oh, I need a fingering chart just because I want to play this. Or, like I said, sometimes jazz band players, you're expected to play treble clef sometimes. I've had that happen a couple of times. Anyway, so I hope this was helpful. If you have any more questions, just throw it in the comments down below, and I'll be happy to answer them. See ya.